As I was saying, I'm Raghida Hassan and I'm the Palestine Education Team intern here, and I'm going to be helping Basma with presenting about what Dabka is and its history. Want to start? Okay. So Dabka is a traditional Arab folk dance that originated in the Levant region, which consists of Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria, formerly known as Bilad al-Sham. Deriving from the Arabic word dabaka, meaning the stomping of the feet, Dabka is a line dance consisting of kicks, stomps, and turns. Dabka is widely performed at joyous occasions such as weddings and sometimes even protests.
So if you don't know, the origins of Dabka is actually very interesting. So it's most commonly known that Dabka was created by villagers, so fallahin, to try to fix the roofs of their homes. So what they would do is they would line up in a long row and stomp to help fix them. So as the weather led to bad roofing, there would be cracks. So family and community members would work together to try to fix them and maintain their home in general. So they would come together to patch the roof by forming a line, holding hands, and then stomping into place. So this was originally why the idea of Dabka came, or why the practice of it was starting.
So as the weather became colder, singing was added to help distract the villagers of their hardships. Oftentimes, a man, if he needed help fixing his roof, he would yell out al-auna, which means let's go and help. And the famous Dabka song ala al-auna actually comes from that phrase al-auna. So Dabka became a tradition that represented the importance of family, community, and one's heritage, and it was passed down generation to generation, evolving into a pivotal part of not just Palestinian culture, but also Arab as well.
So if you've been to any presentations or any Palestinian events, you'll see, or a wedding, you'll see people wear Dabka attire. So originally Dabka attire, it really depends on the origin, but typically men would wear these baggy pants with a wide belt, leather shoes, and of course kufiyas. Women would actually wear tatriz many times, just as you're seeing with us today, or kufiya as well. So this is always traditional for Dabka dance. No, I'm just going to skip it. Sorry, we're just going to skip this one.
Okay, so the British mandate in Dabka. So when the British colonial empire first took control of Palestine in 1920, Palestinians danced the Dabka as a statement of resistance against the British's betrayal of the Palestinian liberation movement, the growing Jewish immigration into Palestine, as well as the growing support of Zionism internationally. Dabka, during that time, it was first then that Dabka became related and connected to politics, as it was used to oppose the political hold of the land. Nakba. So the 1948 Nakba, also known as the catastrophe, was when 750,000 Palestinians were ethnically cleansed and forced to move from their homes, and 15,000 were murdered. After 1948, the Dabka dances of the Dabka troops were choreographed to tell the stories of the villages that were destroyed during the Nakba, which there was about 500 of them destroyed.
And I just want to add for the Nakba, this is very important because with everything that's happening right now, I don't know how aware everyone is of this, but even the Nakba is being contested. So there's a Zionist movement trying to discredit the Nakba, that it didn't even happen. Obviously that's very wrong, and it just speaks to the level in which they go at attacking. So the fact that the Dabka groups would have to perform and tell the stories just shows you how much the tradition really does go into the political resistance, and why it's so important that we uphold and why we maintain Dabka to this day. So with that, the politicization of Dabka. So as we mentioned in the beginning, Dabka was really originated by a farming practice. So it's centered on community. But starting in 1967 and then into the 70s, Dabka started to go into the realm of politics. So after the 1967 Six-Day War, which many of you may know as the Naksa, or the exodus of about 280 to 325,000 Palestinians that were forced to flee from their homes once again following the Nakba, Dabka went from being a dance that was solely about community to being one that was about politics and that was about resistance. So by the 1970s, Palestinian political parties actually had Dabka groups affiliated with them. So every party had a Dabka troupe that was attached to them. And performances became an integral part of rallies and protests. So even today, you'll see many protests where Dabka performances are integrated, because this is a form of resistance. Actually, and this is an interesting fact, but we shouldn't be surprised, is that Israeli authorities regularly and deliberately targeted Dabka troops by denying them permission to travel. So many were at this time allowed to travel abroad to perform, and were trying to do this through their groups or through centers and through foreign programs. And Israel would routinely and purposefully deny any kind of travel permits so that the Dabka troops would not perform outside.
Al-Fannoun dance troupe. So Al-Fannoun, which was founded in 1979, is recognized as the foremost Dabka troupe in Palestine. It was different than most Dabka groups because it chose to remain bipartisan, which means they did not identify with a specific political party. The dancers were heavily targeted by Israel as they were constantly abused and imprisoned. And today, they're based in Ramallah, Palestine, with a direct mission to resist the genocide of their people and culture.
Some of their music was actually played tonight, if you hear it. Sorry.
Dabka during the First Intifada. So the First Intifada brought a huge social protest against the Israeli occupation. At this time, Dabka troops were systematically targeted by the occupational forces. Dancers did not use their names publicly, and the dance was just to dance in public was an act of defiance. Many dancers were targeted and imprisoned without charge, and ironically, much of the choreography of Dabka was created inside of the Israeli prisons themselves.
So this is just a very striking quote. It says, "In the face of Israeli encroachment and the erasure of Palestinian space, time, and presence, the preservation of indigenous practices such as Dabka forcefully resists dispossession. Folklore is resistance. Detached from its precious soil, Palestinian identity, history, and nation must be kept alive, carried, preserved, and performed." So again, this really speaks to the weight of Dabka and Tatriz and why, in general, Palestinians hold on to these practices so closely, and why PACC itself holds on to it so closely. Because we know that this isn't just about a culture, it's about our identity and upholding that and resisting by upholding and maintaining that and teaching it to future generations.
Israeli appropriation. So since its establishment, Israel has been claiming Palestinian food, clothing, the land, the tradition, and the overall culture as its own. Early on, Israel deliberately attempted to say that Dabka is an Israeli dance, which is obviously false. Israel's attempts to erase Palestinian existence only furthers our persistent dedication to uplift our voices, pass down our traditions, and never forget where we come from. Continuing to dance to Dabka has evolved into a form of resistance and defiance against our imperialist oppressors. Resistance in Dabka. Over the years, Palestinians have used art such as the Dabka to resist Israeli occupation. The origins of Dabka has a connection to the land, and keeping that connection alive ensures our connection to the land of Palestine. Despite Israel's forced dispossession of the Palestinian people, Palestinians still continue to resist and maintain their ties to the land through the beautiful dance Dabka. Thank you.